This is
In the
Paris.
news tonight,
But
when one
if
thinks
they
of
do
Paris,
find oil,
sidewalk
life in
cafes and
Paris
fine
is sure
food
to
and
change
wine
too.
spring to mind.
Confuse
These
the
days,
towers.
however, there's a new tower
This
beside the
one is
Eiffel.
an oil
This
rig.
tower is the site of an oil drilling
The
operation.
drilling is exploratory,
For
but a
all
French
the
oil
news,
company
join
says
us
there is a
tonight
6
at
to
6.
In tonight's NBN News, opposition leader Bob Carr predicts a rise in unemployment in the Hunter region. He believes it could increase by around 10% as a result of a state government cut in assistance to the Hunter. Mr Carr accused the Premier of undertaking a garage sale of Hunter assets.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
These 5 letters on a display screen spell the end of 5-digit telephone dialing in the Newcastle area. The press of McGuigan Telecom today scrapped the old numbers in favour of a 6-digit system, make better use of its new $2 million Wolf Street computer exchange.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
Hello, I'm Tom Hilston reporting from Newcastle Court, where a Macquarie Hills woman has been committed to stand trial for the murder of a husband. It's alleged that on New Year's Eve, Pamela Young shot her husband Maitland to death as he lay in bed.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
Mrs Young appeared this morning with her son Gary Young and daughter Gail Sutherland, both of Lithgow. But most interest centred on Catholic priest Father Mark McGuigan, making his second appearance after declining to give evidence yesterday. Father McGuigan spent some time alone with Mrs Young at Lithgow Police Station on the 20th of January before she was charged, providing what he called pastoral care. In the witness box today, he again declined to elaborate. Under examination by Mrs Young's counsel, Ken Haller QC, Father McGuigan would not say whether a confession had or had not taken place. Under further questioning by Magistrate Jeff Brown as to whether a conversation or words had been exchanged, Father McGuigan said he was not prepared to answer. Father McGuigan quoted church rulings from the Code of Canon Law during his appearance. He said the wording of Canon 983 and 984, with their warnings of extreme penalties of excommunication for disclosures from the confessional, made him reluctant to make any comment. Magistrate Brown said New South Wales law did not recognise church law on this matter, but he agreed to leave the question of contempt to be decided if necessary by a judge when the case goes to the Supreme Court on a date yet to be set.
But at a small school in the Hunter today, there was another battle line being drawn. There was nothing like 50,000 in the quadrangle at Warkworth Public School, but the determination was every bit as strong. As a result of the state government's cutbacks, Warkworth will next year lose 0.032 of its staff. Effectively, that's 1 hour from its part-time teacher, who now attends 6 hours a week. And while that mightn't sound like much, for one teacher's school, that news is a bombshell.
Send them to the small school rather than an hour to an hour and a half on a bus each way to Singleton. They're getting the best education they possibly could from this teacher that we have now and her relief teacher. All they're going to lose out is some face-to-face teaching and some of the advantages they have. They already miss out so much on sporting activities and social activities. We don't want them to lose the education as well.
Unfortunately, it's that one teacher at Warkworth who's making their fight all the more difficult. The problem is, say the parents, that teacher, Mrs. Joanne Clues, is too competent, and therefore the department has no qualms she'll cope with the increased workload. But the parents say it's no go, and they've decided to go one step further and foot the bill to keep that extra hour. So today, while the protesters thronged to Sydney, they gathered in the quadrangle to decide their plan of attack.
The PNC is going to fundraise, and we're going to get the estimated $600 that we need to keep the teacher for the hour, and we'll pay her ourselves. Mr. Beard's office has been approached and they're willing to accept it on principle. There are conditions that we don't invoke any levies, that it's all voluntary.
Belongs with winter. Well, rules were made to be broken, and Australia's wool industry has broken those rules and new ground with the release of the pure wool collection. Believe it or not, these flimsy little numbers are pure wool, and they're taking the fashion world by storm.
An enormous success in this country and in Europe and Japan and Asia and America. Worldwide, it's been a huge success.
Cool wool is the linchpin of efforts to toss off the conservative dowdy image so often pinned on the fibre, but it's also a breakthrough for wool growers. Already riding high in the back of huge prices for the fleece in recent months, they now have a much higher and much keener market. The only doubts have been about the ultimate price of the garments. Will the booming wool market reflect in the ticket attached to the finished product? Perhaps a little, says Noreen Colton of the Australian Wool Corporation, but then the market cool wool is aimed at shouldn't worry too much about a few dollars and cents.
Essentially around the world, the sort of area that we're working in, that market will be able to absorb that price, and we don't feel unhappy about that, and more to the point, we feel very happy about the fact that our wool growers are receiving good returns for their raw wool.
The story was the same at both the Hamilton and Belmont bus depots this morning. A packed house as the driverless buses were taken out of service at 10 o'clock. Bus drivers were attending a stop work meeting to discuss cuts to night services, beginning in 2 weeks' time. The Bus Employees Union plans to begin immediately a public awareness campaign of the cuts. Newcastle Union organiser Steve McDowell says services on all existing routes except one in Swansea will be reduced after 6 p.m. He says this means drivers have lost more than 14 shifts a week. Almost 300 union members attended the stop work today. Many think the UTA is acting with undue haste. Members have now formulated a log of claims to be presented to UTA management, including a call for a delay in implementing the service cuts to October the 9th. It's thought that will give people more time to realise the effect of the cuts. If the log of claims isn't agreed to, more industrial action could follow. Today, all services had returned to normal by 2:15.
Since the latest section of Freeway opened at Freeman's Waterhole in March, thousands of extra cars, trucks and buses have been forced to use a secondary road system west of Newcastle. The road winds through Mulbring and Pellor-Main before reconnecting with the New England Highway via John Renshaw Drive. 2 fatal accidents in recent weeks have heightened concern over the road, which is breaking up under the heavy traffic. Locals have reported up to 80 trucks an hour through their once quiet towns.
Steal. What a racket you make.
What does it do to your properties?
You can feel the house trembling with it. You can feel the house tremble with the noise going on.
Cessnock City Council on Newsnight this week, the NRMA senior traffic engineer John Jamieson called the roads diabolical and blamed the federal government for not providing money to improve them.
And it's the federal government which collects that $7 billion every year from the motorists of Australia, yet only it returns $1.2 billion. Where are the roads our our fuel taxes have paid for. They're not certainly outside Curry.
Later this year, and hopefully.
But a spokesman for Peter Morris, Minister for Transport and Communication Support, says the road linking with the freeway is a state matter and denied any responsibility for the thousands of extra vehicles using that section of road each day. Ironically, however, the federal government is funding a temporary link road elsewhere. Trying to understand the way roads are funded is no easy matter. Take, as a case in point, this particular road known as Lenigan's Drive. Now, in a few years' time, when the national highway reaches Minmai, this road will provide a temporary link between the freeway and the New England Highway near Beresfield. Since 1986, $5 million has been allocated to upgrade this section of road. And yet in that time, only $1.4 million has been spent, which begs the question, where's the money gone? Basically, the DMR submits work schedules to the federal government for approval, and once it gets that approval, the money goes into the DMR's account. But it's not necessarily spent on the section of road for which it was approved. The DMR has its own list of priorities and spends the money where it thinks it's most needed. Peter Morris says that the rate of expenditure on Lenigan's Drive is denying motorists the full benefit of road improvement. John Church reporting for NBN News.
Second Sunday of September each year. The festival will win.
You are eligible to enter all 4 sections. So
The giant vessel Iron Pacific cast off from the Kooragang loader just after 2 o'clock this afternoon, carrying 177,289 tonnes of coking coal and blends from Newdell, Mount Thorley and Leamington mines. That beats the previous coal record from the port by more than 30,000 tonnes, set by the Iron Pacific's sister carrier, the Iron Kembla, last year. It's not the first time the BHP vessel has made the record books. A little over a year ago, she sailed with 182,464 tonnes on board, but that was obtained in a double lift, with some of the coal being loaded at Port Kembla and some from the Hunter Valley. But despite her big achievement, the Iron Pacific was given no special attention today, with only a couple of tugs there to farewell her as she sailed through the Hez.
Five men have been charged with attempting to escape from Maitland jail after warders uncovered an elaborate breakout plan. It's thought the long-term inmates intended to use an ingenious ladder made from metal bedheads held together with tape.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
The House with No Steps also runs an engineering and screen printing workshop. The children's slippers business has proven to be the most successful. To mark the historic 250,000 pairs of slippers sold to Kmart, the House with No Steps has donated a plaque to the supermarket chain. 40 mildly intellectually handicapped people plus 20 able-bodied helpers run the workshop, producing the infant felt slippers. Already dominating this area of the market, Junior Footwear sells to markets all over Australia, plus to companies in New Zealand and Hong Kong. Unlike many businesses in the area, Junior Footwear plans to put more people on, with excellent prospects for a new growth industry. Good afternoon, I'm Peter Ryan. Tonight on the news we visit one of Newcastle's more successful workshops. While other companies are going broke, Junior Footwear at the House with No Steps is celebrating the sale of over 250,000 pair of slippers to Kmart Footwear.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6. Moving into the new 5-storey building in central Gosford, Telecom offices were spread throughout 5 locations in the city. That made for inefficiencies and communication problems, especially when combined with an area growing by 8,000 customers a year. The new office, opened today by Neil Watson, Executive General Manager of the Country Division, has brought all 140 service, sales and administration staff together with space to spare. And according to management, it will also mean better service, especially in the area of charging. Along with the new quarters came a new computer account system, which Telecom says will speed up payment notices and provide better service for customer inquiries.
Recently, Newcastle City Council imposed a 2-cent levy on its ratepayers to give support to the local government association's plans to stand by the referendum. Peter McGuigan says that's a big mistake.
Any local government that supports constitutional recognition is at best naive and at worst recklessly negligent. Naive because not one single tangible benefit flows to ratepayers by support of constitutional recognition.
On September 3rd, Australia's voters will be asked to answer 4 questions. Questions Mr McGuigan says look deceptively simple but could trap people into voting yes. In fact, he believes it's already trapped the Newcastle Council into making a decision it will long regret.
I very much fear that the City Council hasn't properly considered all the dangers that lie ahead. If they have, then I would say that they are betraying the interests of their ratepayers by leading them into a legal minefield, the cost of which will be borne by ratepayers.
Mr McGuigan says the responsibility now lies with the ratepayers to lobby council to vote yes, but he admits that isn't easy. Many
Behind
folk are
these
completely
seemingly
in the
innocuous,
dark about
bland,
the whole
harmless
issue.
questions. What people fail to realise is that there are 32 changes to the Constitution consequential on these 4 questions being passed. 19 additions, 8 deletions and 5 amendments to the Constitution.
Well, surely if these questions are very clear.
Dr Cullen is in Australia to exchange ideas on a range of health and safety issues with everyone from cabinet ministers to local council officers. As well as chairman of the Health and Safety Commission, he's the president of the Institute of Chemical Engineers. Naturally, he was interested in Newcastle's expansion into the chemical sector. He was given a rooftop view by local BHP research officer Dr Andrew Vince. Kooragang Island is likely to be the home for several chemical companies, ranging from the recently approved BHP electrolytic manganese dioxide plant to Eastern Nitrogen Limited's nitric acid plant and a proposed chlorofluorocarbon factory. No problem, says the doctor. Chemicals are a fact of modern life.
So. I mean, one has to recognise the chemicals underlie most of our modern civilization. You know, where would we be without detergents, plastics, synthetic fibres and so on?
Does it mean a move towards more dangerous chemicals?
No, I don't think so. I think most of the chemicals are properly controlled these days by the major chemical companies.
Where chemical factories rub shoulders with residential areas, Dr Cullen says communities must be involved in the process of regulations and controls.
I think that's so. I think one's got to have controls. You've got to be careful with controls, though, because industry does have to have the flexibility to develop new ideas, because new ideas are often safer ideas.
The newly formed company, Independent Television Newcastle, announced its new licence today. The MDS Category 4 licence will enable it to transmit a business and community service in the Newcastle, Lake Macquarie and Hunter Valley regions. Independent Television Newcastle has been formed by production company Video Pro and electronic communications company General Communications. Through the installation of a receiver, subscribers will be able to get transmissions of material such as educational and training programs, advertising and corporate videos. Transmission sites should be completed at Mount Sugarloaf and New Lambton by the end of the year, ready to transmit test signals by February. A new studio will also be built. Subscribers are expected to include industry and commerce representatives, government departments, members of the tourist industry, travel agents and banking and financial institutions. Maitland prison officers met at lunchtime today and voted to go out on strike for 48 hours from 1 o'clock. They're supporting a fellow prison officer in what they describe as a blatant case of victimisation and wrongful dismissal. The prison officers have also passed a vote of no confidence in Superintendent George Cornford. The Public Service Association has also been approached to seek legal advice on the best avenue to appeal against the annulment of the prison officer's appointment. The matter is expected to go to the Industrial Commission. Meanwhile, emergency procedures are operating at the prison, with 180 inmates being left in their cells during the strike. Tonight, executive staff are manning the jail and police have been asked to assist in securing perimeter walls. Prison officers are expected to meet again on Sunday to consider a return to work. Belinda Borisar reporting for NBN News.
The Minister and representatives from the Newcastle Harness Racing Club looked over plans for the new track on the site this morning. The government grant of $1.6 million has been approved to build the track, but the Harness Racing Club needs another $1.5 million to build a grandstand.
They're going to build a new trotting track and move from the showground. This will cost in the vicinity of about $3 million, but it will attract a tremendous number of horses. The present track is not good enough. I believe this track will be 940 metres long and 19 metres wide, so you get 10 horses off the front, which is the most desirable thing you can have, so that you can attract horses from all over the place.
Tenders are already out for the track to be built. Meanwhile, the Minister says he's confident the 1996 Olympic Games will be held in New South Wales.
Very confident Sydney will win the bid. Then we get into the major bid for the Games itself. The only real contender will be Athens, but I'm not worried about Athens. I'm sure that Sydney will be the venue for the 1996 Olympics.
It had been suggested that Newcastle would have the water sports for the Olympic Games, but I understand now that Jervis Bay has been accepted.
Yes, well, there are problems entailed in that, as I understand it, the lake doesn't have the wind shifts that are necessary for international competition. But I'm no authority on sailing.
Member for Lake Macquarie, Ivan Welsh, and Newcastle, George Keegan, who have been campaigning vigorously for the sailing events to be held in the Newcastle area, seem to have lost this political battle.
You've got to realise that they bring a lot of experts out to look at the needs of the various sports, and some of them have got various ideas. I'll get a copy of the screeds in the next week. We'll have a look at it, and if we can win them to Newcastle, we'll do it.
On Newsnight, 10:30 tonight. The referendum. The federal government wants to change our constitution. The opposition says hands off. Newsnight will explain the 4 questions up for consideration and debates the cases for and against. And we meet some local people who have turned a simple idea into a lucrative business. From the slopper stopper to the snow bee, a special report. That's Newsnight, 10:30 tonight on NBN.